Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about the winning mentality.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a great excerpt from a podcast called The Winning Mentality, How to Build a Champion's Mindset. And it's got some really, really interesting stuff in here.
Yeah.
You know, we always talk about this idea of winning, but this deep dive is going to challenge us to think about it less as, like I won or you won, but more as a way of approaching everything.
Absolutely. It's really about a way of thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's that inner stuff
Yeah.
that helps people be their absolute best no matter what they're facing.
Right. And this source is great because it doesn't just say like, oh, just be positive or, generic advice like that. It actually breaks down these characteristics of a winning mentality.
It does.
And one of those is resilience. I always thought of resilience as this like almost superhuman ability to just bounce back from anything.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful trait for sure.
Yeah.
But I think what's so interesting here is that this excerpt really points out that resilience is not about never feeling the blow.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about how quickly you can shift gears
Yeah.
from that initial shock or disappointment and move into problem-solving mode.
Oh, so instead of saying like, why me? They're saying, okay, what can I learn from this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's my next move? What can we do?
Yeah.
I remember reading this story about an Olympic swimmer who missed a medal by just a fraction of a second.
Oh, wow.
And most athletes would be devastated.
Oh, of course.
But this swimmer, within minutes, she was analyzing her technique with her coach,
Wow.
figuring out how to shave off those milliseconds for the next competition. That's resilience.
Yeah, I love that. It's like they switch from I failed to how can I improve?
Yeah, and that's something anyone can work on. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete.
Exactly. The source also talks a lot about focus,
Yes.
which seems obvious, but it's probably like one of the hardest things to master these days.
Absolutely, and I like how this source goes beyond just saying eliminate distractions. It emphasizes the importance of knowing what your priorities really are in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like having this mental compass that guides your attention to what truly matters.
I love that analogy because without it, you just get so caught up
Yeah.
in doing all the stuff that seems important,
Yeah, all that busy work.
but it's not actually moving you towards your goals. It's like that time I tried to write a novel while also learning a new language and training for a marathon.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. And surprise, surprise, I didn't make much progress on any of them.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's like we think we can do it all. We spread ourselves way too thin.
Yeah.
But a winning mentality really does require us to be selective, to focus that energy where it really counts. Making those tough choices and saying no,
Yeah.
even when things seem fun or appealing in the moment.
It's almost like a muscle, that ability to just say like, no, this is good, but I'm working on what's great. But that brings me to another point from the source. Positive self-talk.
Ooh, yes, positive self-talk.
It's easy to dismiss that as like the feel-good stuff.
Yeah.
But it really does matter, doesn't it?
It really does. And, this source doesn't try to pretend it's easy. It acknowledges that for a lot of us, that negative self-talk is like our default setting.
Yeah.
It's those mental grooves that we fall into, especially when we're stressed or under pressure.
Right.
But the key here is to become aware of those negative patterns and make a conscious choice to change the script.
So instead of thinking, I'm going to mess this up, you catch yourself and think, I've got this.
Exactly.
I'm prepared. I can handle it.
I can handle whatever comes my way.
Right.
It's like training your inner voice to be your biggest cheerleader
Yeah.
instead of your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And it's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging the challenges while focusing on your strengths and your potential.
It's like shifting from doubt to empowerment. Okay, so we talked about resilience, we talked about focus, we talked about positive self-talk. The source also talks about consistency,
Yes.
which honestly sometimes feels like a superpower.
It does, doesn't it?
It's one thing to have a burst of motivation, but how do you keep that going day after day?
Right. Especially when things get tough.
Especially when things get tough.
Yeah.
What does the source say about that?
Well, I really liked how the source emphasized building systems. It's not just about willpower or forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about creating an environment and routines that actually help you to achieve your goals.
So instead of relying on inspiration, you're building habits.
Yes, exactly.
That help you to stay on track.
It can be simple things like setting aside a specific time each day for your work, breaking those large tasks into smaller steps, or even just finding an accountability partner.
Oh, that's a good one.
Someone to check in with, right?
Yeah.
It's all about recognizing that motivation comes and goes. But systems, those provide the structure and the support that we need.
I love that. And finally, there's adaptability.
Adaptability.
Seems like in today's world, things are just constantly changing.
They are.
So being able to adjust on the fly is just essential. How does that fit into a winning mentality?
Well, what I found really interesting was that the source doesn't see adaptability as separate from focus.
Oh,
It actually argues that true focus allows for flexibility.
okay.
It's about having that clear vision of where you want to go, but being willing to adjust your approach as you need to.
So it's not about like rigidly sticking to a plan,
Exactly.
even when it's not working.
No, it's about being open to new information, to feedback, even to setbacks, and then using those as opportunities to kind of refine and improve your strategy.
I see. And that actually takes a lot of emotional intelligence, doesn't it?
It really does. It's about managing your emotions and reactions, especially when things don't go according to plan.
Right.
Being able to see that bigger picture even amidst the chaos.
Love it. Okay, so the source doesn't just define these characteristics. It actually gives some real actionable steps for cultivating this mentality.
It does.
And the first one is about setting clear goals.
Yes.
Seems so basic.
It does, right.
But honestly, I think a lot of people really struggle with this.
They do. It's easy to have those big dreams. But a winning mentality requires being more specific.
So like concrete,
Yes, concrete, measurable goals.
measurable.
It's about defining what success looks like to you, not what society or other people say it should be.
Right. So not just I want to be successful, but
Right, exactly. What does that actually mean?
yeah. How will you know when you've reached it?
And the source also emphasizes the importance of breaking those big goals down into smaller steps.
Oh, like those milestones that we talk about?
Exactly. It makes it much less intimidating, much more motivating when you're focused on those smaller wins.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
The source also talks about embracing failure as part of the process,
Oh, that's interesting.
which is a huge mental shift for a lot of people, don't you think?
It is. We're so conditioned to fear failure
Yeah.
that we often avoid taking risks or really putting ourselves out there.
Mm-hmm.
But the source makes a really strong case for why embracing failure as a learning opportunity is so crucial for growth.
So it's not about saying I'm a failure.
No, it's about recognizing that mistakes are inevitable,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we learn.
I see. What's important is to learn from them.
Yes, to extract those valuable lessons and move forward.
Okay, and speaking of support, the source also talks about surrounding yourself with positivity.
Yes, surround yourself with good people.
Makes sense, but how does that actually contribute to a winning mentality?
Well, it's about creating an environment that fuels your growth
Okay,
and reinforces that belief in yourself.
I see.
So it's about being mindful of the people you spend time with,
Mm-hmm.
the information you consume,
Yeah.
even just the physical spaces that you inhabit.
So it's not just about having those cheerleaders who are always telling you how great you are.
No, not at all.
It's about those people who challenge you to be better,
Exactly.
who inspire you with their own dedication.
People you can look up to.
Right.
And it's also about recognizing the impact of negativity,
Oh, absolutely.
filtering out that noise that drains you, whether it's toxic relationships, news that stresses you out, or just clutter in your home.
Yeah. You know, I recently read this book that was all about how clutter actually affects your mental state.
Oh, interesting.
It's true. It can really weigh you down.
Yeah, it's like that visual representation of chaos.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, the source talks about practicing gratitude.
Ah, gratitude. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, seems like a simple thing.
It is.
But how does that tie into a winning mentality?
Well, gratitude has this amazing ability to shift our perspective from what we lack to what we already have.
Mm-hmm.
It's about appreciating the good things, both big and small, and cultivating that sense of contentment, even while we're striving for more.
It's so easy to get caught up in the chase, you know?
It is.
Always looking for the next achievement, the next milestone.
Always wanting more.
Yeah.
Never stopping to appreciate what we have.
Yeah.
But gratitude helps us to pause,
Mm-hmm.
to really savor those accomplishments
Mm-hmm.
and recognize how far we've come.
It gives you perspective.
Exactly. And that can be so grounding.
Yeah. Especially when we're facing those inevitable challenges.
It reminds us of our strengths, our resilience, the resources that we have available to us.
Finally, the source talks about persistence.
Yes,
Sounds obvious.
it does. Right.
But it's probably the most crucial element of a winning mentality.
I think you're right. It's rarely a straight line to success. It's about that consistent effort, the dedication, that willingness to keep going, even when progress is slow
Yeah.
or when those obstacles inevitably arise.
It's about believing in your vision and trusting the process.
Absolutely, even when you can't see the finish line.
Okay, so we've talked about all these characteristics of a winning mentality. But the source also gives some really interesting examples of people who embody this.
It does. Some really inspiring people.
Yeah, people like Michael Jordan, J.K. Rowling, Oprah Winfrey.
Wow, talk about success.
Right, they're all incredibly successful. But what's interesting is that their journeys were anything but straightforward.
That's what makes their story so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, they all faced challenges, setbacks, even outright failures.
They did, but they never gave up.
And that's what sets them apart, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was their belief in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
their commitment, their ability to learn and adapt.
Let's talk about Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah, the legend.
I mean, considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time.
Absolutely.
But his journey wasn't all sunshine and roses.
No, not at all.
In fact, he got cut from his high school basketball team.
Really?
Can you imagine that?
Wow. I mean, the guy who became an NBA icon.
Right. Initially, he was told he wasn't good enough.
It's hard to even fathom.
It's the perfect example of resilience. It's not about avoiding those setbacks.
Right. It's about how you respond to them.
And Jordan, he used it as fuel
He sure did.
to work harder, to prove them wrong.
There's that famous quote of his. He said, "I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed."
Such a powerful statement.
It really sums up the winning mentality.
Yeah, it's not about being fearless. It's about acknowledging fear as part of the journey.
Using it to your advantage.
Exactly.
And then there's J.K. Rowling.
Oh, yeah. Amazing story.
I mean, her journey to becoming a literary sensation was anything but easy.
So many rejections.
Countless rejections from publishers who just didn't see the potential in Harry Potter.
It's hard to believe now, right?
It is. I mean, can you imagine the self-doubt she must have felt?
I can only imagine.
But it's a testament to believing in your vision, even when others don't.
You have to trust your gut.
And persistence. She didn't give up. And that dedication paid off.
It did, in a big way.
And finally, Oprah Winfrey.
Another incredible journey.
I mean, her story is just resilience, adaptability, focus. She overcame so much.
She did, challenging childhood, obstacles in her career.
So many obstacles.
And she became a media mogul.
And an inspiration to millions.
What I find so inspiring about her is that she was constantly reinventing herself.
She was. She never stopped growing.
Adapting to the changing world. But she always stayed true to her values and her vision.
Which was connecting with people on a deeper level.
Exactly. So these examples really show that a winning mentality, it's not some magical quality reserved for special people.
The mindset.
It's a mindset that we can develop.
Anyone can cultivate it.
Yeah, through effort and practice.
Yeah, exactly.
We can all learn from these amazing people.
And use their stories to inspire us on our own journeys.
And this deep dive has given us those tools to start cultivating that mentality in ourselves.
It has. And remember, it's not about becoming the next Michael Jordan or Oprah. It's about finding your own definition of success.
Right, and using these principles to achieve it.
Ex-
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question.
The Haley questions.
What is one small step you can take today to cultivate this winning mentality in your own life?
That's a great question. It could be anything. Maybe you'll challenge yourself to see a recent setback as an opportunity for growth. Or commit to a new habit that supports your goals. Whatever it is, just remember that even those smallest steps can have a huge impact.
Keep exploring, keep growing, and know that you have the power within you to create the life you desire.
You got this.
All right, we'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
So it's like we think we can do it all at once.
Yeah, we try to juggle too many things.
But to have that winning mentality, we really have to be more selective.
We do. We have to focus that energy on what matters most.
Right. Make those tough choices and sometimes say no to those things that look fun.
It's true. You have to say no sometimes, even when it's tempting.
Which is hard. But that actually makes me think about another thing the source talks about, positive self-talk.
Oh yeah, that inner voice.
It can be so easy to just dismiss that as like fluffy stuff, you know?
It's easy to brush it off, for sure.
But it really does make a difference, doesn't it?
It does. And this source, I like how it doesn't pretend that it's always easy.
Yeah.
You know, it actually acknowledges that for a lot of us, negative self-talk is almost like automatic.
Yeah, it's like our default setting.
It is. You just fall into those thought patterns,
Yeah.
especially when things are tough.
Especially when you're stressed or under pressure.
Exactly. But the key is to become aware of those patterns.
Mm.
And then you can actually choose to change the script.
So instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to mess this up,
Right.
you can say, I've got this.
I'm prepared. I can do
I
this.
can handle whatever happens.
It's like you're training your mind to be your biggest supporter.
Instead of your own worst critic.
Right. And it's not about being delusional and pretending everything's perfect. It's about acknowledging the challenges, but focusing on your strength.
And your potential.
Yeah. You shift your mindset from doubt to empowerment.
So we've talked about resilience, focus, positive self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
The source also mentions consistency.
Ah, yes. Consistency. That's a big one.
Which honestly sometimes feels like an impossible superpower.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone can get a burst of motivation.
Right. But to keep it going day after day.
Especially when you hit those
That's
roadblocks.
the hard part. What does the source say about that?
Well, they talk a lot about building systems.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting because it's not just about willpower. It's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about making it easier to achieve your goals.
So you create routines.
Yeah, you build habits that help you stay on track.
Instead of just relying on just feeling inspired.
Exactly. So, for example, you could set aside a specific time each day for focused work.
Mm-hmm. Block out that time.
Yeah, or maybe you could break down those big, overwhelming tasks into smaller steps.
Oh, yeah. Make them more manageable.
Exactly. Or even finding an accountability partner can help.
Oh, that's a good one. Someone to keep you on track.
Yeah, someone to check in with to make sure you're actually doing the things you said you would do.
It's about recognizing that motivation comes and goes.
It does.
But systems, those provide structure.
Yeah, they're like the framework that keeps you moving forward.
Okay. And the last characteristic the source mentions is adaptability.
Adaptability, that's so important in today's world.
It really is. Everything's changing so fast.
It's constant.
You have to be able to adjust on the fly.
You do. So how does that fit in with a winning mentality, you ask?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what the source says.
Well, this is interesting. They don't see adaptability as being separate from focus.
Okay.
They argue that actually, when you're truly focused, that makes you more flexible.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because you have a clear vision of what you want to achieve.
Right. You know where you're going.
But you're also open to different ways of getting there.
So it's not about sticking to the plan no matter what.
Exactly. You have to be willing to change course if necessary.
So you're open to new information, feedback, even setbacks.
Yeah, and you can use those things to improve your strategy.
It seems like that actually takes a lot of emotional intelligence.
It does. You have to be aware of your emotions and how you react when things don't go your way.
You can't just freak out.
No, you have to be able to stay calm, see the bigger picture.
Even when things feel chaotic.
Exactly. Keep your eye on the prize.
Okay, so the source doesn't just define these characteristics.
So go a step further.
They actually give some actionable steps for how to develop this winning mentality.
They do. They give you concrete things you can do.
And the first one is all about setting clear goals.
Goal setting. The foundation.
It seems so basic, but honestly,
It is, but it's so important.
I think a lot of people struggle with it.
They do. It's easy to have those vague ideas of what you want to achieve. But a winning mentality requires clarity.
You need to know exactly what you want.
Yes. Concrete, measurable goals.
And how you'll measure your progress.
Exactly. It's about defining success on your own terms, not based on what other people say.
Not just like, oh, I want to be successful.
Right? What does that even mean?
Yeah, have to be specific.
And the source also talks about breaking those goals down into smaller chunks.
Oh, yeah, milestone.
Exactly. It makes the whole process less daunting.
Less intimidating, more motivating.
Right. You focus on those smaller wins.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
That's a good one.
The source also emphasizes embracing failure.
Oh, interesting. Failure is part of the process.
Yeah, which I think is a huge mental shift for a lot of people.
It is. We're taught to fear failure, to avoid it at all costs. But this source, they argue that failure is a crucial part of learning and growth.
So it's not about saying, oh, I'm a failure, I give up.
No, it's about accepting that you'll make mistakes. That's inevitable. Everyone does.
The important thing is to learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. To figure out what went wrong and how you can do better next time.
Okay, so we've talked about setting goals, embracing failure. The source also talks about the importance of your environment, surrounding yourself with positivity.
Ah, yes, the company you keep.
It makes sense, but how does that actually contribute to a winning mentality?
Well, it's about creating an environment that supports your growth,
Okay,
that reinforces your belief in yourself.
I see.
So pay attention to the people you spend time with,
Hmm.
the information you consume.
Yeah, like what you read, what you watch.
Exactly. Even the physical space you're in can have an impact.
So it's not just about having those people who are always cheering you on.
No, it's deeper than that.
It's about finding people who challenge you,
Yeah, people who inspire you to be better.
people you admire.
And it's also about being aware of negativity.
Oh, yeah. Negativity can be so draining.
It can. You have to filter out that noise. Whether it's toxic relationships, news that stresses you out.
Or even just clutter in your home.
Yeah, clutter can create a sense of chaos.
It's true. I actually read this book recently about how clutter affects your mental state.
Oh, interesting. What was the main takeaway?
It was all about how clutter can really weigh you down, you know?
Yeah, it's like a visual representation of all the things that are cluttering up your mind.
Exactly. And it can be so freeing to clear that clutter.
It can, both physically and mentally.
And on the flip side of that, the source also talks about practicing gratitude.
Ah, gratitude. That's a powerful one.
It is, and it seems so simple.
It is simple, but not always easy.
But how does that tie into having a winning mentality?
Well, gratitude helps you shift your focus from what you don't have to what you do have.
Mm-hmm.
It's about appreciating the good things, both big and small. And that helps you cultivate a sense of contentment.
Even while you're still striving for more.
It's a balancing act.
It's so easy to get caught up in the chase, you know?
It is. We're always looking for the next thing.
Always wanting more, never satisfied. But gratitude forces you to pause,
Yeah, to appreciate the present moment.
to savor your accomplishments.
And to recognize how far you've already come.
It gives you perspective,
Exactly. And that perspective can be so grounding.
especially when you're facing challenges.
It reminds you of your strengths, your resilience, all the resources you have to draw on.
And finally, the source talks about persistence.
Persistence, the key to long-term success.
It seems so obvious, but
It is, but it's often overlooked.
it's really the foundation of a winning mentality, isn't it?
I think it is, because success rarely happens overnight. It's the result of consistent effort, dedication, and that willingness to keep going even when it gets tough.
Even when you feel like giving up.
Exactly. It's about believing in your vision, trusting the process, even when you can't see the finish line.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here talking about these different aspects of a winning mentality.
We've really delved into the characteristics.
But the source also gives some really inspiring examples of people who embody this mentality.
They do some incredible role models.
Yeah, we're talking about Michael Jordan, J.K. Rowling, Oprah Winfrey.
Talk about success stories.
They're all incredibly successful in their fields.
They're icons.
But their journeys weren't always easy.
That's what makes them so relatable, you know?
Yeah, they faced challenges.
They had setbacks,
Even outright failures.
but they never gave up.
And that's what set them apart.
Their resilience, their belief in themselves.
Let's talk about Michael Jordan for a minute.
Oh yeah, the basketball legend.
Considered one of the greatest of all time.
Absolutely.
But, you know, his path to greatness wasn't smooth.
It wasn't all trophies and championships?
In fact, he got cut from his high school basketball team.
Really? I had no idea.
Can you imagine that?
The guy who would go on to dominate the NBA.
Right. Initially, he wasn't considered good enough.
Wow, that's a powerful example of resilience.
It shows that it's not about avoiding setbacks.
Right.
It's about how you respond to them.
And Michael Jordan, he used that rejection as fuel.
He did. He worked even harder.
To prove everyone wrong?
There's that famous quote of his, he said, "I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed."
What a statement. That really sums up the essence of a winning mentality.
It's about acknowledging failure
Yeah.
and using it as a stepping stone.
Not letting it define you.
Okay. And then there's J.K. Rowling.
Oh, yeah. What an amazing story.
Her journey to becoming this literary phenomenon.
It was a long one.
It was anything but easy.
She faced so many rejections.
Countless rejections from publishers who just didn't see the potential in Harry Potter.
It's hard to believe now, right?
It really is. I mean, can you imagine how discouraging that must have been?
All that self-doubt she must have felt.
But it shows the power of believing in yourself, even when others don't.
You have to trust your instincts.
And you have to be persistent.
Never give up on your dreams.
She didn't give up, and her dedication paid off.
In a huge way.
And finally, there's Oprah Winfrey.
Another incredible journey.
I mean, her story is just one of resilience, Adaptability, focus,
She overcame so much adversity,
a difficult childhood, obstacles in her career,
but she never let those things stop her.
and she became this media powerhouse.
And an inspiration to millions.
What I find so inspiring about her is that she was always reinventing herself,
She was. She evolved with the times.
adapting to the changing world. But she always stayed true to her core values and her vision of connecting with people.
On a deeper level.
Exactly. So these examples really show us that a winning mentality isn't some magical thing.
No, it's not about being born special.
It's a mindset that you can develop
Anyone can cultivate it.
with effort and practice.
And we can learn from these amazing people.
Their stories can inspire us on our own journeys.
Absolutely.
And this deep dive, it's given us the tools we need to start building that winning mentality.
It has. And remember, it's not about becoming the next Michael Jordan or Oprah. It's about finding your own path to success.
And using these principles to guide you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've really dug deep into this idea of a winning mentality.
We have. We've explored a lot of different aspects.
We've talked about the characteristics, the steps you can take.
Yeah, even looked at some inspiring examples.
Right, but it's one thing to understand all of this. It's another thing to actually put it into practice.
It is. It's about taking action.
So what would you say is like the first step for someone who wants to start cultivating this mentality in their own life?
That's a great question. And actually, the source addresses this too. It's not about trying to change everything overnight. You don't have to suddenly become this perfectly resilient, super focused person.
Right, it's about starting small.
Exactly. Identify one area where you can make a change.
So maybe you struggle with negative self-talk.
Yeah, that's a common one.
Could the first step be just noticing those thoughts and trying to reframe them?
Yeah, just becoming aware of that negative chatter
Yeah.
and consciously choosing a more positive script.
Or maybe you get easily distracted.
Oh, distractions are everywhere these days.
Right. So maybe you start by setting aside a specific time each day for focused work.
Yeah, like 30 minutes with no phone, no notifications.
Just dedicated to the task at hand.
Exactly. The key is to start small,
Yeah.
be consistent, and then you can gradually expand from there.
I think that's such an important point. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, like you need to change your whole life all at once.
Right, you want to do it all.
But real change happens gradually through those small, consistent actions.
It's like building a muscle.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You wouldn't expect to be able to lift a ton of weight on your first day at the gym.
Yeah.
You start small, you gradually increase the resistance.
And over time, you get stronger.
Exactly. It's the same with building a winning mentality.
And it ties back to what we were talking about before with systems and habits.
Yeah, those are crucial.
It's not about relying on motivation. It's about creating those structures that support you.
So you show up consistently, even when it's tough.
And then the great thing is that those small changes, they start to have a ripple effect.
They do. They spread to other areas of your life.
So as you become more resilient in one area, you start to see that resilience in other areas too.
It's like this positive feedback loop.
Yeah, success breeds more success.
And as you experience the benefits, it becomes easier to maintain that momentum.
But it's important to remember that it is a journey.
It is. It's not a destination.
There will be setbacks.
There will be. That's inevitable.
There will be doubts.
But that's all part of the process.
The key is to keep learning, keep adapting.
Keep moving forward.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question.
Oh, I like questions.
What is one small step you can take today to cultivate this winning mentality in your own life?
What's that one action, no matter how small, that will move you in the right direction?
Maybe you'll reframe a recent setback as a learning opportunity.
Yeah, turn that failure into fuel.
Or maybe you'll start a new habit that supports your goals.
Like setting aside 15 minutes each morning for meditation or journaling.
Whatever it is, just remember, even those smallest steps can have a huge impact.
They can. So keep exploring, keep growing, and know that you have the power within you.
To create the life you want.
You absolutely do.
That's it for this deep dive. Hope you found it helpful.
Thanks for joining us.